As a contractor, you typically use and order the same items every day. To make your online ordering easier and more efficient, you can create lists of these frequently used items and organize these lists by groups. There are 3 ways you can get these lists. You can create them by finding specific items and adding them to a list. You can create these by using a spreadsheet, or your local supply house can create these lists for you and then assign them to you. Here we will go over one way to create groups and lists by finding the products and adding them to specific lists. After logging in, you will click on Lists. Notice, when first logging in, if you have no lists created, this area will be blank. We are going to first create a group, and then we'll create a list. We are going to create a group called Copper Tubing. Then click on Create Group. Now we're going to create a list under copper tubing called Hard Copper Tubing. And then we will select the group Copper Tubing that this list will reside under. We're going to create one more list. We'll call this Hammer Arresters. And save that under Copper Tubing. Now notice under My Lists, we have the group called Copper Tubing. By clicking on the plus sign, we expand that group, showing the 2 lists we have created. Currently, there is nothing in either one of those lists, so we're now going to add them. We're going to initially look for hard copper tubing. Once I find the item that I would like to add to the list, I have 3 options. The option I will select is Add to List. I would then check the box to the list I would like to add that item to, and I will then click on Copy Selected to Lists. I would then continue to add items to the list until I've added all of the items I wish to have in my frequently ordered items. Here's another hard copper tubing. I've already defaulted to the hard copper tubing list. I will copy to selected list. And I will continue on. After I have completed adding items to my list, I can view those lists and manage those by clicking on Lists, going to my group, expanding it, and looking at the list Hard Copper Tubing, which we added items to. Here are the items that we've added. I can rearrange those any way I would like by clicking Arrange, and I can drag and drop those items in the sequence which I would like them to appear when I open up the list. If I wish to rename the list, I can click on Edit and give the list name a different name. The other option I have in lists is Show Inventory Fields by clicking here, and this allows me to add default quantities. If I am building a typical installation kit, typically I will need more than one of certain items. So I can add default quantities. I can also put in my bin location if I wish. And if I have a customer part number, I can also put that in here. I will then update my inventory. That will set my default as 2 for this particular item. I can change that for any of these items. If this was an installation kit, I could select all of the items that I need for a particular installation, add them to cart, and then check out, making your order very easy. I can repeat this procedure for any of the various lists that I've created. Here's hammer arresters. I can also click on Quick View instead of going down to the item detail, clicking on Add to List, selecting the list I wish to add that item to, and copy. And I would continue until I've finished adding items to that list. Now under our lists, under hammer arresters, which we just created, we can then manage as list by rearranging it or showing inventory field and adding default quantities. If you have a large number of lists, but only use a few lists most frequently, you can identify those lists by adding them to a favorite. If you click on that favorite flag, that list will now be under my Favorite tab. Those are the lists, again, that you'll use most often. If you no longer wish to have that identified as a favorite, I will simply click the favorite flag again, and it will remove it from your favorites list. We will continue with more information about lists in other tutorials.